Hey everyone, welcome to Relationship Mailbag. We are back. My name is Mark Gordon with Relationship Matters. This is Drew Stevens with Beyond the Legacy. We've joined forces because we believe every relationship impacts our legacy. And so we've been tackling some tough questions this summer. We just decided we wanted to have honest and clear conversations about 30 minutes long, 40 minutes long at the most, about relationships and the things that affect them, especially the things that affect them negatively. So we've had some pretty deep subjects, and this week we continue on. Drew, we had a part one last week. Why don't you tell everybody what we're going to do and what we did last week, and then what we're going to do this week?
Okay, so the topic and theme and the question of part one and part two is, how does my relationship survive addiction with a loved one, with regards to family or a partner? So last week we got into what is the definition and what is addiction. Mark got into that subject. He got into his personal story with regards to his battle and overcoming addiction, through the years from his past, and how he's helping people, individuals and families and couples in the present, using his experience, as a catalyst, a relationship catalyst, to help them with all different subject matters with regards to relationship and family. But there's so many things. We talked about early signs. We talked about how to help and support the person that is going through this process, but we didn't get into all the details about the support. We're going to get into more of that in this one, but also just looking at it from a holistic approach of, this is something that is a marathon and a journey. This is not something that is going to be instantly solved and fixed. There's going to be patience that's going to be needed. There's going to be being able to take a step back and put yourself out of this situation and get the support you need so you don't get drained emotionally as the partner, the family member, someone that's supporting. So in this part two, we definitely want to get into a couple things. And for starters, we left off where the person was dealing with addiction was going to call the center, the rehab center, the treatment center, to get help. And usually if they go inpatient, it's quite a few days. I mean, I've had friends that have gone 90 days, 60 days, even longer, in terms of whenever they're in a better place. And then there's that vulnerable moment where they are released from the treatment center and they're going to return home. And as a partner, as a mother, father, as a family member, how do you support that person day one? They're day one back into society, having the ability to leave the house and make life choices on their own. Like, how do we support them to make sure that their journey stays healthy? Let's start there.
Well, there's a lot of questions in there around the same subject, but let's see if we can do this. First and foremost, I want to encourage anybody that has maybe missed the first part to go back and watch the first part before you watch this part. There is some really rich content in that last conversation and some real practical help. So just encourage you to go back and watch that one. So where I want to start with this one, Drew, is, okay, so what do I need to do as a family member with an addicted person in it? I want to back up a little bit. What do I do once they've left? And even they get to the point, the epiphany, and now they're going for help. But what do I need to do in that time? What is important for me during all of that time? And I want to just touch on a few points, because I think it's important for families to know. I think I said near the end of the first episode that a lot of times families, all the help goes to the addicted one, that it all goes to the person with addiction, and all the attention and support and everything goes there. But actually the family also needs support. The primary caregiver of the family, the person most affected by that addiction, they need support through that whole process. Because, and here's why, it's going to answer your second question, is because if you don't do that and you're not healthy, when they do come to that place where they seek the help and they get the help and they're coming back out to reintegrate, you need to be at your best. You need to be strong in who you are so that you can help them the best, so that you don't fall into old patterns. Because one of the things I've noticed is one of the greatest triggers in people's relapses are relationships. So the greatest thing that's going to help them get through this is relationship, but the greatest thing that can send them back is relationship. So depending on whether that relationship is negative or positive experience. And so it's really important relationally to be healthy yourself. So here's a few things you can do through the entire process. One is get some coaching or counseling for yourself. Get somebody to help you walk through this. Have a place that you can vent this out that's not the family, that's not the circle of influence around you, because whenever you have to vent, sometimes you need to say things that are hard, and you don't want to criticize that person you love, or you don't want to judge them or make somebody else judge them. And so where do you go? Where is it safe to actually have that conversation? Well, get a coach or a counselor to help you walk through that. Somebody or a trusted close friend that maybe won't be judgmental or be influenced of their opinion about your addicted family member. But mostly it's good to go to a professional to just get some help, because they're not emotionally connected. They can give you insight and a view that you may not have. And so I work with lots of families that have addicted ones, and they may still be in their addiction, but they need to have the care that they need to get through that as well. So the second one is a support team. Make sure that you're not, the biggest thing, because there's so much shame and stigma around addiction, a lot of times families try and keep it a secret. And they don't want anybody outside the family knowing anything because they're embarrassed. Fact is that it gets out anyway. And all you're doing is crippling yourself from a support team. So make sure you get yourself into a community, a community of faith, or any kind of community that you can put around you, a support team, a support group of people that will actually walk with you through it. There's groups also like Al-Anon who are really good at providing that support, and they have meetings just like AA have meetings where you can talk about your emotions and what you're going through with your addicted family members. So join Al-Anon or one of those kinds of groups. I think find your purpose in life. What happens with addiction is it sucks the life out of everybody around them. And so it sucks your purpose away because your full attention is going to support the person, and you got to give your own life up. And I think you need to rediscover your life. I think you need to live out your purpose. Find things that you enjoy doing. That's not selfish. Self-care is actually a good thing in this case, because you need to be strong to get through this. And so make sure that you are actually living on purpose, not by accident or in crisis. Don't let their crisis be your urgency, if you know what I'm saying. So that's kind of important. I think compassion. Sometimes we can really lose compassion for other people. I know a lot of times families will think everybody's judging them because they have somebody addicted to their family, and so they harden their hearts and they get really judgmental. And again, you're sabotaging your own support system. People aren't probably judging, and if they are, they're not people you're going to hang out with anyway. And sometimes they're judging. They're not judging. They're just kind of recognizing, and they don't know how to help, and they get awkward, and they don't know what to say, so they say the wrong thing. We have to have compassion. You also have to have compassion for yourself, because you've made some hard decisions, put some boundaries up. It'll be easy to take on shame. It'll be easy to be criticized. Of course, the addicted person will definitely blame you and all that kind of stuff. So have self-compassion and then compassion for others. And the most important thing out of all that list is humility. We got to humble ourselves. Now is not the time for pride. Now, remember, pride puffs up or it covers up. So in addiction, a lot of times pride covers up. We feel sorry for ourselves. We feel sorry for the addicted one. We feel pity instead of pity doesn't bring a result. Compassion does. Love does. Boundaries do. So so you got to just humble yourself. Don't think that you've ruined everything, and so it's all gone. So now that's kind of, I wanted to cover those things because it's really important for the family and the primary support person to be healthy. So now your loved one has had the epiphany. They've had a revelation. They've had an encounter. They've had an event that's got them to this point where they're ready to reach out and get help. What do we do now? Well, one thing I found, Drew, is sometimes we move too quick. It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to get better overnight. And so you have to manage your expectations right away. Manage your expectations. Yes, celebrate the fact that they've said this. This is good news. That's wonderful. But if you get over enthusiastic about it or over hopeful for it, then you'll try to over compensate or over care in it. It'll actually cause more harm to the person that's trying to get help. It'll make them self-conscious, if you will. Just facilitate. Don't be their boss. Don't be their, over caring means that you're trying to do it for them again and controlling it. So you really want to make sure that you're managing your expectations. Yes, be hopeful. Yes, be grateful. Gratitude is a great thing to walk in. I'm so grateful that they've recognized this and that they're getting the help they need. But just go slow with the expectations, because they might make the call. They might even show up at the door, and they might take off the first day.
Yeah.
So you just got to know that this isn't the end of the journey, because now they're getting help. It's actually the beginning of the journey. So that's the first thing that I would kind of, I would say. Trust the professionals to do their job, but realize that they can't do it any differently than you did. In other words, they may not be successful either, because it's up to the individual who has to want it more than anybody else wants it. I found that I can't help people that don't want help. And if they don't take my advice and they don't follow my prescriptions in terms of getting healed and walking and healing, then I can't force that. Sometimes it's quite a journey. So recovery is not a detox and they're done. They need to be in a long term. And the most successful I've seen is where it's a residential type program where there's stages that they re-enter life as they are sober for longer and longer. They move through to different stages of recovery within the residential program. In my area, there's some really good ones, and most areas have really good ones available for that. And so, and then after they've been, sober a while, then they can slowly reintegrate back into everyday life. The worst thing you can do is have them go through rehab and then bring them home. Okay, everything's good now. Let's go. No, that's not going to happen. They need some kind of residential, some kind of ongoing support. If residential isn't available, then make sure as they're coming out of that rehab that they're, first day out, they're into an AA group, they have a sponsor right away, that they have the support network around them if it can't be residential. Do you let them back in your home yet? Maybe not. Maybe they need to find somewhere else to live for a while they sober up, because the toxicity residue is still going to be on them and in their minds. And so it would take very little for them to do something or show a lack of gratitude, and you're upset, and then boom, trigger, bang, fight, out the door, back to the using. So just be patient in the process. So yeah, so now they're sober. So now they're kind of coming through that. What now? Is that your last? That was your last question, right?
Let's actually take a step backwards just to give a little more insight to folks. Like before we get to now they're back and out of rehab, walk from a generalization standpoint. I know there's different treatment centers and things you've experienced from folks that you've helped or something you went through. What happens when someone checks into a treatment center? Like what do they go through during those days and months?
The first thing they do the first thing is detox, right? So it depends. Some centers have detox units and some don't. So sometimes they have to go to a detox first, and then they go from there to the recovery center. The first 90 days is like lockdown. They're not allowed to just go out, wander off on their own. They have to follow the rules. It's very strict and very, puts them in a box because they need it. And then they'll support, depending on the like I'm generalizing because each one's different, but there'll be some form of therapy connected. There'll be some teaching, some kind of training, like they try to give them life skills. They try to rebuild from the inside out, some kind of healing journey. They'll probably have a journaling experience where they teach them how to journal and how to process all that. Depends on the center. Christian ones will have like a prayer and Proverbs in the morning where they, start the day off with the right mindset. They will eat together and whatnot. But the first 90 days generally is lockdown. They're not allowed to go out. And then if they're still sober after that 90 days and they graduate that initial thing, then they'll move into the next phase, which is probably more of those life skills, continued therapy, go a little deeper, but they'll have a little more freedoms. So they might be able to then call loved ones. They'll be able to touch base with family members. They might be allowed out to different events or whatever where they go as a group, and but they still have watchful eyes. They still have connections that they're responsible for. Of course, all of them are regular meetings, AA meetings type of deal, because they're going through the 12 steps. So as they go through this process, the steps, the early steps are kind of admission. It's about them. It's about where they're at, and then where step 4 is doing an inventory. What are all the wrongs that I've done? What are the wrongs that have been done to me? Step 5 is confession. Let's find a trusted person. So I've done tons of step 5s with people because of being a minister, but also because I've walked this road. Then they'll want to do step 5 where they confess that inventory list. And then as they move from there, it becomes about others. So the first 5 are really about them. The next ones are about other people and how they affected them. So it moves from there forward. So each of those stages have different parts to them that they'll have more freedom as they go through them. So now some people will try to just skip through the steps really fast so they can get quicker down the road, and it never works. They always relapse. You got to go slow and sure. You got to pace it at what you can handle. And so it depends on the person how quickly that goes. But that's generally speaking after that. So then after a year, they might move into a facility that has still some supports. They probably have a meeting room in it somewhere that they can meet on a regular basis, and they'll have, but they can go to work. They can start rebuilding their careers. They can start getting some work skills, that kind of stuff. And then from there, they can find as they've rebuilt their life, they can find their own accommodations. So that's kind of the process. Now,
Gotcha.
Again, that's generalized. It depends on the center and where they are and who they are and all that. But that is kind of the idea is you need lots of supervision in the beginning, and then you earn, by healing, you earn the right to more freedom.
Yeah, it's like I've heard from counselors and folks in those treatment centers, like they need structure, even though they don't want it. You have to provide structure, parameters, boundaries, all these various things to bring them back to a healthier place for when they are ready to be back into the world.
And if the family isn't at a place where they could do that and provide it, and most can't because it's family, they're not going to listen to you. And that's why it's so important that they go through that process. I just know lots of families, they just want everything back to normal quickly. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So just be aware of that and understand it. And so, and support them in it. If they're not allowed to call, don't keep trying to call them. I know, especially when it's a romantic relation, like a spouse or a partner, they miss them. They want them back, and so they could even sabotage it by usurping. I heard of one in one of the recovery houses I work in where the wife is out in the car and he's coming out and visiting her, and not supposed to do that. And he ended up relapsing. So we gotta help, not hurt. In that process. So what we want to do, how we can help, is we encourage them to follow the rules of, these are professionals. They do this for all the time. They've helped many people. They've had a good recidivity rate. Just trust the process. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's hard. We're here for you. We're cheering you on, but you've got to follow the process, follow that structure. The best thing you can do is encourage them to listen to the people that are trying to help them.
So when they do exit the treatment center, it's safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, they're in a vulnerable place still, right? In
Yes,
terms of they're very vulnerable exiting while
the
they
most
receive treatment. Yeah.
the most vulnerable, and especially if they haven't done the full year program. If they've only done 90 days and then they kind of come back out and they don't continue on with that, or if there isn't services available for that, and they haven't, that's the most vulnerable time is when there's newfound freedom. They've stepped out of the structure and now they've got to create their own structure. Now, a lot of centers will do a sobriety plan. They'll walk away with a plan. So that the first thing, find an AA group, get a sponsor. That should have already been done. But as they leave, make sure you go the first week. Have a meeting set up the first week before you even leave here, and so there's a lot of times where there's a sobriety plan in place, but that is the most vulnerable time because they're now free to make their own decisions. And the worst place they can go is back to the old friend group. When
Exactly.
you get to this place, it's a time for new friends. It's time for new circles. That old circle will suck you right back into it fast. And so, by the way, a lot of times there's co-addiction at different levels. In other words, let's say it's a husband and wife. The husband has gone to rehab, gone through the whole process. The wife still likes to have wine with her meal. She likes to drink wine, and maybe every once in a while, she's not an addict, but she likes to get drunk and party. Sometimes the guy gets out, and she's drinking wine at dinner. No booze, no drugs in the house. Not any kind of booze, not any kind of drugs in the house. And you need to refrain. If you really want to help them and have that relationship build up strong again, and you want to help them stay sober, you've got to join. You are just as responsible as they are in terms of keeping the environment clean for them. So, my wife didn't have addiction issues, but she won't drink. We don't have booze in the house because that would, and I'm 32 years sober now. I'm not going to relapse at any time. She'll have a wine when she's out. Sometimes with the kids, she'll have a glass of wine, and there's odd times she'll even do it when I'm there, and I'm okay with that because I'm 32 years sober. But if I was 1 year sober, she wouldn't. She didn't the first 10 years, I think, after. I don't think she even had maybe even more. Might have been 15 years after. She never had even one drink because she knew that could affect me. So it's a commitment.
That says something in terms of you are the accountability, right? Like your partner is going to hold you accountable and also do their part to support you. So there's 2 or 3 things I want to dive into of for part 2 is A, the support, meaning how we support that partner, that family member when they come back. B, we'll do this in stages. B, how does one identify if the environment they're returning back to isn't a healthy place for them, right? Let's say it's a child and it's just not a healthy place to return to. They're out of treatment. How do you identify that and make the decision as to where they can go or stay that would be a healthier environment for them for their sobriety? And then 3, the third one I'll say is we'll dive into is how also this could affect the household, children, siblings, other folks in the household, indirectly and directly.
Okay.
So
you might have to remind me of
so let's start with the support part first.
Yeah. So the first thing on the support part to support that person coming back is I already said it, and that is to clean the house. No booze, no alcohol, no drugs. Try and create as safe a place as possible. Now, the determination of whether or not they should come back is a tough one, but I think it depends on age and abilities. Independence, is important for somebody. So if it's like a 35-year-old son, they probably shouldn't come home. We should try and help them find a place to live that's nearby where you can support from a short distance. If they're 16, then they should come home or, whatever. So it depends on the age, I think. It also depends on the situation. So that one's a tough one to answer. It's just that to recognize whether or not the environment is toxic, that's the key. Is you want to create a safe, peaceful place for them to catch their breath, right?
Let me pause you there. So not just the physical shelter and home, but what if the outside environment of influence, meaning the city they're in, the town they're in, like almost relocating to a totally different, not to say that they can't travel back, right, and get to their friends and be their friends, but just sometimes the outer environment can be unhealthy as well.
Yeah, but we have to realize the internal will determine the external. So what I'm saying is that you can change the location. They'll just find all the drug addicts in that town. I've seen people do that. They try to move to find a healthier environment. They just find their way back to that because the internal stuff hasn't changed. So we're assuming in this conversation that they've done all that work. They've gone through recovery. They're doing well. So yes, then in that case, a change of scenery might be important, because if it's the same old neighborhood and the same people are in that neighborhood, then that is a risk for sure. So you might want to help them find housing, find a situation that is not not close to you, a little bit further away from you. And so your house may not be the best place. But I don't think you should either sell the house or uproot your whole family because of that one person either, because now you're doing the same thing as you were doing to your family in the addiction. And so I think it's important to find that balance. Now, if it's a husband, wife, or a spouse, obviously they have to live together. That might be a decision you make as a family to say, you know what, we got to move out of Dodge. This is not a healthy environment for me. So it depends on the situation for sure. The first thing you want to do for them is to make sure that there's support systems in place. So when they're coming, let's assume they're coming home or they're coming back to the area. The best way a family can support that person is by making sure they have that support system. Making sure, can we see, you could even ask that before they come home or come back, can you share your sobriety plan with us so that we can help hold you accountable, help you walk out that sobriety plan, and make sure they have a support network. So, they need a support network, and that's going to be part of that sobriety plan, is to have a support network. So who's the support network? Who can they turn to? Where is that place that you can help them find a place to get the help that they need? And so you might do that research before they get there. Where's the closest AA groups? Where do they meet? When do they meet? What other kind of supports can we get them? Counseling, coaching, ongoing, coaching, life coaching is really important for that. So that could be another way of facilitating. It doesn't have to be expensive. There's lots of expensive people out there, but it doesn't have to be expensive. There's all kinds of services available out there. I think the other thing is to make sure they get busy working or volunteering right away. The quicker they can start to regain some independence, feel like they're accomplishing something, the better it is for them. So I think it's important for them to start to work. If they can't find work, to at least volunteer somewhere where they're actually actively serving other people. That goes along. In our addiction, we're really selfish. I was very self-centered and selfish in my addiction. One of the things that helped me heal a lot was I started helping others and volunteering. And that really held me accountable, because I couldn't very well help others if I was still in my addiction. So times I was tempted, it's like, I can't do that. It's going to ruin everything I've built here. And so it was really important to have that. So get them involved in serving others. Maybe your local church, maybe you're involved in, maybe there's maybe there's some kind of a volunteer opportunity that your family's already involved in. Just invite them to come with you. Hey, we'd love you to come with us and do this kind of stuff. And so it could be feeding the poor, it could be working at a food bank, it could be lots of things, right? Probably not, volunteering downtown where all the drug trade is. We need some wisdom in it. But yeah, that there's, when you start to serve others, you start to build self-worth. And so I really believe that helps. Exercise and meditation, prayer. For me, I'm a person of faith, so prayer, getting them established in a local church is really important. Faith is a huge thing for people coming out of addiction. Celebrate recoveries. They're all over the country down in the States and in Canada. I'm involved in the one locally here. They're fantastic. They're just fantastic. It's a non-judgmental place. It's people that are, that have struggled with addiction, that run it, that lead it, and they understand, and they're awesome. And so yeah, we help them find those things. So before they even get back, hey, I found a Celebrate Recovery. It's Friday nights at such and such a place. I'll go with you, right? Join them on there. This is the time you can enter the healing journey with them. Not overshadow them, not control them. Just be there to serve and facilitate, lift up, if you will. So that's really good. Rebuild purpose and identity. They need to find out their why. They need to really, I think purpose is, I always tell people, especially when I'm in recovery houses speaking, I always tell them, don't make being sober your goal. And they all look at me like, what? I thought that's why I'm here. Don't make being sober your goal. Actually find out what your purpose in life is, because where you look is where you'll walk. So if you're just trying not to drink or not to do drugs, you're inevitably going to get back there because that's what you're focused on. Focus on what you're called to. Focus on what your purpose is in life. What do you want to write your story? You get to rewrite your story. They do this in recovery houses, so they may already have it done. But just underline, say, you can help them and facilitate. Say, what do you want to do with your life? And maybe they say, well, I want to go back to school, or I want to get a job in this area. This, I've always wanted to do this. Facilitate it, encourage them to do it, and then make space for it to happen for them. I think that's if you can help them find their purpose and their why, I think you're going to actually see tremendous changes, because now they're heading there instead of, and so when addiction comes up, like a temptation comes up, no, get out of the way, I'm heading over here.
So let me pause you there. It's a good point, and it's something that's in your book, Relationship Matters. A vision statement, a mission statement, working with them to create that vision statement, that mission statement that provides that purpose, that aspirational direction they're trying to go. So maybe, so in addition to, obviously, if you pick up his book, we'll have the link below where you can he has a full guidance within the chapters of how to create that vision and mission statement. That's something you can do with your partner. But I would also say, Mark, what are some words of encouragement in terms of daily affirmations or things that you can instill in that family member or partner to remind them of their value, their purpose, and their love, like those things?
I call them I am statements. We want to affirm ourselves, and we're really by the way, the whole process of recovery. I've always said everybody should go through 12-step, because the whole process of recovery is healing. And the whole healing journey is actually how to have self-confidence, and to have, so the very things that you do to get through recovery, to get sober and to get healthy, is anybody should go through that process. And so it's very powerful for anybody to do this exercise. And so I think that it's really important to have a vision and a mission statement and a set of values that you claim are important to you. Once you have those, now you build a set of what I call I am statements that support or affirm, because what you're doing is retraining your brain. The whole process of recovery is retraining the brain to think a different way. And it is, and so that's why I say everybody can benefit from it. I needed to retrain the way I think. So I am statements, I always say, don't fake it till you make it, declare it until you believe it. So what you could do to help that person, that loved one, is to have a set of I am statements based on that purpose, based on those values that they want to hold to. So, for example, I am an overcomer. I am sober. I am an encourager. You want to point it towards that purpose. I am a person with a servant's heart. So you get these I am statements, and then you encourage them to say them out loud, look in the mirror and say them out loud every morning. And then you support it by saying, you are such an encourager. Use affirmation to build them up. You want to see what's strong, not what's wrong. So often in recovery, once they've got out of this, the old stuff is held over their head. You hurt the family. You did this. You did that. That just pushes them back. What they need to hear is, you are so valuable. We are so proud of you. I am so, I love you so much. You fought so hard. We're so excited. And if they do have a fall, or they have a bad day, don't beat them up for, oh, here we go again. Because it's hard on the families, because we think the other shoe is going to drop any moment. But if you're looking for the shoe to drop, you'll probably cause it to drop. That's what I always tell people. So you don't want to cause it to drop. You want to just eliminate that from your vocabulary. Deal with it if it does drop. So, but don't deal with it before it drops, or you'll cause it to drop. So what you want to do is you want to just encourage them, use loads of affirmation. The shame base in somebody that's gone through recovery is still there. They're learning how to manage it, but it's still there. So the more affirmation you can give them, the more encouragement you can give them, the better it is. And because you got help, you got the support network, you got the counselor, you've dealt with the pains and the resentments that, you need. That's what everybody needs to go through 12 steps. Like the family, go through the 12 step for yourself and deal with your resentments because of their addiction. Deal with the things that you've been caused pain in your life because of their addiction. As they're going through theirs, you go through yours, so that when they come out, you're both healthy and strong. See, in addiction, you become codependent. And what gets us to codependence is an unhealthy independence. So, the pendulum is, we're either very independent, I'll do what I want to do, nobody's telling me what to do, or we're codependent, I can't live without you, but I hate you. So those two pendulums are usually found in addiction. It's one or the other, or sometimes a bit of both. What we want to have is interdependence. So as they come out and they're sober now, and you're rebuilding your life together, you want to have interdependence. What is that? Interdependence is, for Sandy and I'm strong. I know who I am. I know where I'm going, and I have confidence in who I am. I have a strong self-worth. Sandy knows who she is, where she's going, and she has a self-worth. We choose to come together in interdependence. She doesn't need me to know her identity, and I don't need her to know my identity. We just know who we are, but we're bringing our strengths together to live a life together. That is interdependence. And so that's your journey. When they get out of recovery, they come home, you're starting to rebuild your life, you need to build interdependence. Where they are strong in who they are, you're strong in who you are, you're going to be in a much better position to be able to see success. And Sandy and I are living proof. We've been just at our 39th anniversary in June. We have a wonderful life together, and that's because we are interdependent.
It's a beautiful thing. Like I think, especially someone going through this process, and you've been through it, Mark, there's other versions of us that we haven't even discovered yet. There's other chapters we haven't written yet. So it's like the version that you were sort of in terms of the journey, and then the version you are today. It's like there's different versions of us, and I think it's okay to not recognize, like, well, I'm not that person that I used to love in terms of what they thought they loved.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's a new version that's meant to be that you haven't even discovered yet. So you have to evolve into that space.
And what we've experienced in the past becomes fertilizer for what's growing in the future. In other words, I've taken what tried to destroy me, overcome it, found out my identity and where I want to go as a person, what God's purpose was for me, and I started heading that way. Now, all of those things that I did that hurt, I use to help others. That energy, so it literally becomes fertilizer for what I do today. I wouldn't have the credibility to speak to these things. I wouldn't have the experience if I just had book smarts. But because I've got real experience, life experience, it brings another level of authority. Well, that's because I lived it. And that's hope for anybody that's living it right now. You can actually see the very things that have caused destruction in your life be used to bring good in other people's lives in your life later on, if you make the good choice of deciding to move forward in your purpose and your why.
So let's close out the chapter on two things. One is,
Yeah.
I want you to lightly share, at the highest level, how this could also affect the household in terms of the children, other folks, in terms of the indirect and direct attention they're not receiving or neglect that could happen because all your energy is focused on a certain person in the household, whether it's your spouse or whether it's, a certain sibling or child, son or daughter. Like, how does that come into play? But then also, let's take it home and give some encouragement for folks that are tuned in for both of these episodes to, take them on this journey.
I think the main thing is to, first and foremost, just recognize that it has affected the whole family. A lot of people are in denial when this happens. They think, oh, no, I shielded my other kids from this. No, or I shielded my kids from my spouse. No, they got affected. So just admit it. First step in 12-step is to admit, I need help. So just admit that, you know what, we didn't get it all right. Don't walk in shame like it's all your fault. That's not healthy. Just admit and say, you know what, this affected us all. And we all need to heal. We're all in recovery now, the whole family. And so if you can recognize that, that will help a lot. I think transparency, we got to rebuild trust. So the trust pillar has to be rebuilt. And I think transparency is super important to the whole family. So it's okay for that sibling to feel angry and ripped off that, that their sibling was addicted. It's okay for, to be hurt. But like I said, while your loved one is in the healing journey, you need to be on a healing journey so that you can deal with those things. So, but don't try and just cover them up or, we got to suck it up now. Oh, he's coming home. We got to suck it up and just keep everything still and easy. No, the best thing you can do is just to continue to live a life that the family lives. That's why, though, I have that in my book, by the way. It's not necessarily for people that are coming out of addiction. It was actually to save you from going into addiction. Everything in my book is preventative. So if you do all the things in there, it actually means that you might not have to go through addiction, but it also works for recovering. So it's really important for the family to reestablish, to have a family meeting, to sit down and talk about, okay, so-and-so is back now, and we have to have space and opportunity, not to dump on the person, but to say, hey, this is how it affected me, but I want to move forward. So I think the vision mission statement would be better if it was for the whole family, not just for the individual. Now, each individual within the family can have their own, but you'll notice that there's a connection between them. And so I think it's important to do that, and then to have that conversation about, okay, what are our values going to be moving forward? We can't change the past, but we can invent the future. So who do we want to be as a family now? And a lot of times that will come in like the values like compassion, love. Okay, so this is a loved one. We're choosing love. The other thing, the last thing maybe on this subject is hold the relationship higher than the offenses. You got to hold the relationships higher. So make sure that every relationship in the family is strong and okay. So do check-ins. Do check-ins with everybody, not just the addicted person, because then they feel singled out and they feel like nobody trusts them. You got to do check-ins with everybody, and then also with yourself. That's why you get the help that I said earlier. Make sure you have a coach or a professional that can help you, and then you can just do or ask your family, hey, can you check in with me? Just do a check-in with me once in a while.
Well, I think we covered quite a bit. I think this is definitely, all smiles aside. Obviously, we're smiling because we're in a place that we know people that are receiving this are going to be hitting that share button, privately with folks that might be going through this or knowing family.
Please send this. Send it, like email it. When you share, it doesn't have to be public. It can be through Messenger or through whatever platform you're on. Send it personal if you know somebody going through this, for sure. But I want to just encourage anybody. I am living proof that you can overcome addiction. My family is living proof that the family can overcome addiction. We have healthy relationships in our family, and I know that I'd like to say I'm the norm and that this is everybody, but I know it's not. But there is hope. There is hope. You can do this if, a big if, everyone involved is willing. If one is not, if the addicted person just refuses, then you have to do everything I talked about with the family that is okay. Like all the principles we talked about in this video, you can still apply those to everyone else in the family that is not steeped in their addiction in the moment. And it'll keep the family strong so that when that person is ready to come home, they have a strong family to come home to. So yes, but I want to encourage you, this is doable. This can happen. Have faith. For me, I always say, and I'm not preaching here, I'm just saying, God help. I don't think we could have done it without him. So I know there's, higher power, whatever, for me, it was Jesus, and he just, I couldn't have done it without faith. I can tell you that. So you're going to have some level of faith, not saying where you have to place it, but you're going to have faith, and it only takes a mustard seed and it can grow. And so, yeah, just you can do this.
And from my standpoint, I've been on the supportive side for folks that have went through addiction. And people always ask me, like, well, why? Why do you care? And why do you get yourself involved in terms of support? Mm-hmm. And I look at it as, as human beings, we have to be there for each other, especially if that person matters to you and you care about that person. And they might not be in the sound mind to make those decisions for themselves, but there's going to come a later date. They're going to say, thank you for not giving up hope in me. Thank you for, directing me in the direction that led me to me making that choice for myself. And I think that's the one thing to keep in mind, whether you're part of the family, a friend from the outside, you could be that person. And we use this expression a lot, Mark, that could change the course of history for that person.
Yeah.
So don't take that lightly. You could be that person that changes the course of history for the person battling this. And then when you see him on that other side, like it's a beautiful, beautiful thing right now. Like Mark and I are having this conversation, knowing the journey that Mark has went through, knowing that we're now having a conversation full circle to help folks around this subject matter. What else can I say? That's legacy.
Yeah. There it is.
That's legacy.
It is. So there's hope.
Yes.
Wherever there's legacy, there's hope. And wherever there's hope, there will be legacy. There's a new T-shirt for you.
Yep. We'll put that on a dry fit. It's coming through in the fall, maybe. Maybe it could be a hoodie. I'm not sure. We'll see. But
I want one when you do it.
Oh, absolutely. You'll be the first one. Well, number 1A and 1B in terms of on the press. But with that being said, I know we've gone into overtime into part 2, but I think everything that was shared here, I think, is going to be very, very helpful for anyone that's going to watch this, tune in. Eventually, we're going to turn this over to Mark, and he's going to put it on his podcast on like Spotify and different platforms you can download it. This is something that I think people need to hear. I'm glad, Mark, that this is why I wanted to do this summer series, because like you are a fountain of knowledge and wisdom, and just it's immeasurable in terms of having these discussions with you. So I'm grateful that we are having these discussions in the summer series, and maybe we'll do a little bit more. We'll see in the fall in terms of what we can do together.
Let us know. Like if you don't comment on the episode itself, let us know. Would you like us to continue this? We'd really like to know if this is impacting or not. So.
Exactly. Comment below, private message us. Let us know if this is resonating with you, and we'll definitely strongly consider taking your advisement if you want to see more of these discussions. So with that being said, episode, in the books of part 2 is in the books, and just want to say for Mark and I, thank you. And we'll see you next week.